Due to a recent announcement.
Wait, this looks a bit familiar.
What? I've gone back to World and done a few videos for fun, which have seen some fairly positive reception. So I genuinely appreciate you guys for that. Thank you. Though, not long after that announcement, the Monster Hunter team released another video, one where they would be thanking their fans for all their support in the recent 2 entries and celebrating the franchise's 20th anniversary. Besides that, they also announced that they did a community vote to determine the community's #1 monster out of the entire franchise. And the top 3 monsters will have some art while they'll be together. So that got me thinking, why don't I do my top 3? So, here we go. I absolutely despise snakes, but there's something grand about this fight for me. And I'm not talking about the snake's size. First time you encounter this thing, it's just a terrifying situation to be in. You feel extremely tiny compared to the threat and power before you. You have this limited space and arena to deal with such a colossal threat. But in true Monster Hunter fashion, there's always a little hope. Just enough to fight and bring that thing down. On top of that, the gimmick has stuck in my mind for so long. I mean, actually being able to run on top of a monster like that back then, it made you feel like an ant that's not going down without a fight. Not to mention the spectacle of the fight. It's just a battle that's remained in my memory all these years later. And I continue to hope that the Great Serpent eventually makes his return in a spectacular entrance. Number 2 is actually one that came out fairly recently in 2019 to 2020 with the release of Iceborne. This monster, I'm sure, was created out of necessity. Out of the 100 to 200 monsters before Iceborne and Rise, there were only 35 ice monsters. In Monster Hunter World alone, there were only 2 ice monsters. 2! By now, you probably already know who it is. The flagship of Iceborne and the Queen of Ice herself, Velkhana. Velkhana to me is not only a cool ice monster, but the very embodiment of ice itself. When going through the story, it's very clear that her presence is an issue, one that must be dealt with immediately, or the new world could be at risk. And while at first glance her design seems pretty alright, things soon change for the better once her real form is revealed. Fortunately for you, things shift for the worse. Her form just oozes out regal calamity, a monster that can bring upon an ice age that only she could reign over. And yet, a queen's reign will not last forever, not in the face of pure chaos. Number 1 is quite the fan favorite, and it holds a place deep in my heart. You see, my very first Monster Hunter game was for you, released all the way back in 2015, at least in America, when little me was seeking to get the 3DS at the time. And what I experienced back then was one of the best stories a mainline Monster Hunter game has to offer, one that still holds up to this day, really. Number 1 spot for me will always be the Magalas. Monster Hunter games usually give you a rival to fight, one huge mountain to overcome, and which are usually referred to as flagships. The monster in the box, in the cover, in the art, and all that stuff. For the sake of more recent examples, World had Narigante, Iceborne had Velkhana, Rise has Magnamalo, and Sunbreak has Mosino. All of these, Magala included, have caused changes within the ecosystem and they need to be dealt with immediately. What makes Gore Magala stand out is not only the fact that its mere presence is a threat due to its frenzy virus, but that throughout the story, Magala grows with you. Eventually, you'll fight Gore Magala in the story, a fight that will naturally test your skills against this threat. And once you win, Gore Magala will retreat. Defeated and probably humiliated, it flees to recover. And if you struggled with Gore Magala for a long while, well, I have news for you. After its defeat, it not only evolves, but also ascends into the realm of the Elder Dragons, now known as Shagaru Magala. Once you meet him a second time, he recognizes you from its earlier defeat, and he's been holding a grudge ever since. The hunter in this case needs to put an end to Shagaru Magala for everyone's safety, whereas Shagaru is here to correct his wrong and finish what he started. Here's hoping he'll return in wilds. Hey, video's over already, but if you have a sec, I wanted to express my thanks. Recently, my videos have been received positively. I just wanted to say thank you. Thanks to every single one of you who lends their eyeballs and watches my stuff. It means more than you know. And I appreciate every single one of you. So once again, thank you. With that said, I wish you all the best, and here's to Monster Hunter in 2024.